Harry Lillis Crosby Jr. was born on May 3, 1903, in a modest house his father had built at 1112 North J Street in Tacoma, Washington. Born into a working-class Catholic family during the dawn of the 20th century, nothing about his humble origins suggested that this infant would become the most commercially successful entertainer of his era. His father, Harry Lillis Crosby, worked as a bookkeeper for the Inland Brewery, while his mother, Catherine Helen Kate Harrigan, was a second-generation Irish-American who filled their home with traditional Irish folk songs around the family piano. The Crosby household was large and lively. Harry Lillis was the fourth of 7 children, with older brothers Lawrence Earl Larry, born 1895, Everett Nathaniel, born 1896, and Edward John Ted, born 1900, and younger siblings Catherine Cordelia, born 1905, Mary Rose, born 1907, and George Robert. An interesting footnote to his birth is that young Harry had no official birth certificate, a detail that would cause some confusion throughout his life, especially since his younger sister Mary Rose shared his May 3 birthday. To avoid competing celebrations, Bing often celebrated on May 2, though his true birth date was only confirmed after his death when a priest in Tacoma disclosed his baptismal records. The Crosby family's heritage traced back to English and Scottish roots on the paternal side, with particularly distinguished lineage connecting to the very foundations of American colonial history. Through his father's line, Harry Lillis descended from Simon Crosby, who emigrated from the Kingdom of England to New England in the 1630s during the Great Puritan Migration, and remarkably, from Mayflower passenger William Brewster, circa 1567-1644, one of the signers of the Mayflower Compact. This blend of old New England stock and Irish Catholic tradition would shape the cultural identity of the future star. In 1906, when young Harry was just 3 years old, the Crosby family relocated to Spokane in eastern Washington state, the city that would forever claim him as its native son. The family settled into Spokane's Catholic community, and in 1913, Harry Lillis Crosby built a new family home at 508 East Sharp Avenue. This house still stands today on the campus of Gonzaga University, preserved as the Bing Crosby House Museum, containing over 200 artifacts from his extraordinary life and career, including his academy. Growing up in Spokane during the 1910s, young Harry Lillis was immersed in a household where music was as essential as daily bread. His father, despite his mundane bookkeeping profession, possessed a fine singing voice and regularly performed in local Gilbert and Sullivan musical theater productions. His mother Kate gathered the children around the piano to teach them Irish folk songs, instilling in them a love of melody and harmony that would prove foundational to Harry's future. The boy absorbed these influences like a sponge, developing what he would later call his prime coat in show business, the foundational layer upon which everything else would be built. The Crosby family's Catholic faith played a central role in young Harry's upbringing. He served as an altar boy at St. Aloysius Church, where he experienced the solemn grandeur of liturgical music and ceremony. This religious foundation would later inform many of his most beloved performances, particularly his portrayal of priests in films like Going My Way and The Bells of St. Mary's. He attended Gonzaga High School, operated by the Jesuit order, where he received a rigorous education that emphasized both intellectual development and moral character. He graduated from Gonzaga High School in 1921. The origin of the nickname that would become world famous is rooted in young Harry's childhood reading habits. He developed a fascination with the Bingville Bugle, a humorous comic feature that ran in the Sunday edition of the local Spokane newspaper. The comic depicted the fictional town of Bingville and its colorful characters, and young Harry's enthusiasm for this serial entertainment was so pronounced that his schoolmates began calling him Bing in reference to the comic strip. The nickname stuck, and by the time he reached his teenage years, few people outside his immediate family called him Harry anymore. It was a fortuitous moniker, short, punchy, memorable, and perfectly suited to the entertainment industry he would soon dominate. Following his graduation from Gonzaga High School, Bing enrolled at Gonzaga University with the intention of studying law. His parents, practical working-class people, hoped that their son would pursue a respectable professional career. However, the university years proved to be a turning point where Bing's true passions emerged and overtook his prescribed path. While he attended law classes and maintained passing grades, his heart and mind were increasingly drawn to music and performance. Bing's musical interests during his Gonzaga years were heavily influenced by the revolutionary sounds emerging from the jazz age. He became enamored with the performances of Al Jolson and Eddie Cantor, studying their vocal techniques and stage presence. More significantly, he discovered jazz music, particularly the New Orleans style, and developed what would become a lifelong admiration for Louis Armstrong, whose innovative phrasing and rhythmic approach would profoundly influence Bing's own vocal style. During his time at Gonzaga, Bing initially became involved with a local dance combo called the Dizzy Seven, playing drums for the group. The band performed at high school dances and at the illicit bathtub gin-fueled parties that proliferated during Prohibition. This was the Roaring Twenties, an era when jazz was the sound of youth rebellion and speakeasies flourished despite, or perhaps because of, their illegality. Bing's musical trajectory took a decisive turn in 1924 when he acquired a bass drum through a mail-order catalog, despite admittedly limited drumming skills. At around the same time, a young man named Alton Rinker, a student at North Central High School, was leading a small band that needed a drummer. Though Al Rinker was 5 years younger than Bing, he boldly approached the older man to audition for his group, the Musicalators. The Musicalators was an ensemble of high school students that included Al's brother Miles, Bob and Claire Pritchard, and Jimmy Heaton. During the audition, Bing demonstrated his drumming, apparently adequate if unspectacular, but then mentioned that he could also sing. When the group heard his voice, everything changed. None of the Musicalators could read music in the traditional sense, but Al Rinker possessed an exceptional ear and could adapt arrangements from phonograph records, assigning appropriate notes and parts to each musician. Bing, developing an immediate rapport with Al, even renamed the younger man Al from Alton, a small gesture that symbolized the beginning of a partnership that would change both their lives. The Musicalators began performing regularly at Larida's Dance Pavilion in Dishman, about 6 miles east of Spokane. This engagement lasted an impressive 18 weeks, giving the young musicians valuable experience playing for dancing crowds and developing their repertoire. By the spring of 1925, however, the group disbanded as members pursued different paths. But Bing and Al Rinker saw something special in their collaboration and decided to continue working together. After the Musicalators dissolved, Bing and Al were hired to perform at Doc Clemmer's Theater, now known as the Bing Crosby Theater in Spokane. They played 15-minute entr'actes between film screenings, a common practice in the movie palace era when live entertainment supplemented the silent pictures. For the first time, Bing focused primarily on singing while Al accompanied him on piano. The format worked beautifully, and they maintained this engagement for 5 months. During this period, Al Rinker had an audacious idea. His older sister, Mildred Rinker, later known professionally as Mildred Bailey, worked as a sales clerk at Bailey's music shop in Spokane, but harbored her own aspirations of becoming a professional singer. She had already moved to Los Angeles and was making connections in the burgeoning entertainment industry there. Al suggested to Bing that they pool their meager funds and drive to Los Angeles in Al's broken-down flivver, a slang term for an old, unreliable car, particularly a Ford Model T, where Mildred might help them find work. In the autumn of 1925, the two young men, Bing was 22, Al just 17, embarked on their adventure to California. It was an act of remarkable courage and faith, leaving behind the security of regular work in Spokane for the uncertainty of Los Angeles, where thousands of aspiring performers competed for opportunities. They had little money, no concrete job prospects, and only Mildred's vague promise of assistance. The journey itself was arduous, as the primitive roads and Al's unreliable vehicle made the trip an adventure in mechanical problem-solving as much as geographical transit. Upon arriving in Los Angeles in late 1925, Bing and Al initially struggled to find work. Mildred Rinker helped where she could, making introductions and vouching for their talent, but the Los Angeles entertainment scene was fiercely competitive. The duo performed wherever they could find an audience, small clubs, private parties, speakeasies, gradually building a reputation as an entertaining novelty act combining Al's skilled piano playing with Bing's smooth, jazz-inflected vocals. Their big break came through a combination of Mildred's connections and their own persistence. They managed to secure an audition with the Fanchon and Marco vaudeville circuit, and their performance impressed the bookers enough to land them regular work. During this period, Bing and Al also appeared at the Clemmer Theater in a brief engagement, where they were billed first as the Clemmer Trio, with Frank McBride, Lloyd Grinnell, and Harry Crosby, with Rinker playing piano in the pit, and later as the Clemmer Entertainers. This very successful 12-week run helped establish their credentials in the Los Angeles market. The duo's fortunes truly turned in late 1926 when they caught the attention of Paul Whiteman, the most successful and prestigious bandleader of the era. Whiteman, known as the King of Jazz, though his music was more accurately described as sophisticated dance music with jazz elements, was always looking for fresh talent to keep his orchestra at the cutting edge of popular entertainment. He was impressed by the chemistry between Bing and Al and by Bing's distinctive vocal approach, which was unlike anything in popular music at the time. Whiteman hired Crosby and Rinker in late 1926, and soon after added a third member to create a vocal trio. Harry Barris, a talented pianist and vocalist with a unique ability to scat sing and imitate cymbal crashes and other percussion sounds, joined Crosby and Rinker to form the Rhythm Boys. This vocal group would become groundbreaking, the first true jazz vocal group in American popular music. The Rhythm Boys made their formal debut with Paul Whiteman's Orchestra in 1927, and their impact was immediate. While all three members contributed to the group's sound, it quickly became apparent that Bing Crosby possessed something special. His voice had a warm, intimate quality that came across beautifully in the new electrical recording technology that was just beginning to revolutionize the music industry. Unlike the theatrical belters of the vaudeville era who had to project to the back of cavernous theaters, Bing understood intuitively how to sing to the microphone, creating a sense of intimacy and direct communication with listeners. The Rhythm Boys' performances with Whiteman were innovative and exciting. They would enthusiastically join in humorous ensemble numbers, with Harry Barris providing his signature sound effects, while Bing took occasional solo choruses, showcasing his more romantic voice. Their repertoire mixed jazz standards, novelty numbers, and popular songs, all delivered with a swinging rhythmic feel that was fresh and modern. In 1928, Bing achieved his first #1 hit with a jazz-influenced rendition of All Man River from the musical Showboat. This recording demonstrated his remarkable ability to take a theatrical song and transform it through jazz phrasing and his unique tonal quality. His version was both respectful of Jerome Kern's magnificent composition and daringly individual in interpretation. However, success with the Rhythm Boys came with complications. Bing, Al, and Harry were young men enjoying the fruits of their sudden success, and their lifestyle became increasingly wild. They frequented speakeasies, drank heavily despite prohibition, and generally engaged in the kind of behavior that worried the straight-laced Paul Whiteman. There are numerous accounts of Whiteman having to bail the Rhythm Boys out of various scrapes and dealing with their unreliability for performances. Despite these difficulties, Whiteman recognized the Rhythm Boys' commercial value and continued to feature them prominently. In 1930, the group appeared in the film King of Jazz, one of the first major Hollywood films to showcase a big band and its performers. This film appearance gave the Rhythm Boys national exposure beyond their recordings and radio broadcasts with Whiteman. However, Bing's growing dissatisfaction with Whiteman's organization and the bandleader's frustration with the group's behavior led to the Rhythm Boys' departure from the orchestra in 1930. Later that year, the trio joined the Gus Arnheim Orchestra at the Coconut Grove nightclub in Los Angeles. This venue was one of the most prestigious in Los Angeles, located in the Ambassador Hotel and attracting Hollywood's elite. The partnership with Gus Arnheim proved to be the final chapter of the Rhythm Boys. After recording just one title with Arnheim, it became obvious to everyone, the bandleader, the other Rhythm Boys, and Bing himself, that Crosby was destined for solo stardom. Bing had already been recording occasional solo sides starting in 1927, and these recordings consistently outsold the group's efforts. His voice had matured, his interpretive skills had deepened through constant performance, and his understanding of how to communicate through the electronic medium of recording and radio broadcasting had evolved into genuine mastery. The Rhythm Boys quietly dissolved, with each member pursuing independent paths. Al Rinker and Harry Barris would continue in music with varying degrees of success, but neither would achieve anything approaching Bing's trajectory. As for Bing Crosby, at age 27, he stood at the threshold of the 1930s, the decade that would transform him from a successful jazz singer into the most famous voice in the world. By 1930, the foundations were firmly in place. He had mastered his craft through years of hard work in Spokane, Los Angeles, and on the road with Whiteman. He had absorbed the jazz innovations of Louis Armstrong and translated them into a more accessible, popular style. He had learned to use the microphone not as a mere amplification device, but as an artistic instrument that enabled a new kind of vocal intimacy. And he had developed the relaxed, natural persona that would become his trademark, seemingly effortless, actually the product of countless hours of performance and refinement. The journey from Spokane to stardom had taken him from Doc Clemmer's theater to Paul Whiteman's orchestra, from anonymous drummer to celebrated vocalist, from Harry Lillis Crosby to Bing, a name that would soon be recognized in every corner of America and eventually the world.